Welcome to Rebuilding LA After the Fires. I'm Jan Bresky, and in this podcast, I explore how Los Angeles recovers from the recent devastating wildfires. In each episode, I sit down with developers, community leaders, and other real estate professionals to uncover what it really takes to rebuild homes and neighborhoods. If you're looking to understand what's next for LA, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Today, I'm going to be interviewing Amy Bach. She is the executive director and founder of United Policyholders. Amy, welcome, and it's great to have you.
Good to be with you.
Amy, why don't we start with your career background? How did you come to found this organization? And then tell us a little bit about what United Policyholders does.
So I am a New York native, and in the 80s, I was working for an agency called the New York State Consumer Protection Board, and I was the baby on the team. And so when the then Governor Mario Cuomo, Daddy Cuomo, created a commission to look at whether the laws should be changed in New York to make it harder for people to sue insurance companies, as insurance companies were asking for that to happen. I got tagged by my agency to represent us in connection with this commission. And so I was introduced to the legislative dynamics between insurance lobbyists and then consumer interests. And I saw that there really wasn't a voice for consumers when big decisions were being made that would have a big impact on insurance policyholders, consumers. And I thought, well, I could make myself useful in this life by becoming an insurance consumer advocate and by really, honing my skills. So I got the bug for insurance at that time. I had to go to law school in order to really, be a good, effective advocate. And I just every time there was an interesting insurance matter that I could get involved in, I did. I worked while I was in law school on a lawsuit, very interesting lawsuit where 18 state attorneys general sued the London-based reinsurers. Reinsurers are the sellers of really high dollar, right, protection against very high dollar losses. These attorneys general sued the London-based reinsurers, alleging that they had conspired to affect the American tort system, which is exactly where I started, right? The tort system is, the system under which you can sue somebody for causing you harm, economic harm. So I worked on that lawsuit. And then when I got out of law school, there was a ballot measure that the voters had passed in California called Prop 103. And it had been launched by some Ralph Nader acolytes, people from Public Citizen, and it was historic regulation of insurance rates, kind of an initiative that had a lot of different pieces, and it was very interesting to me. So I went and worked for a group that had sponsored it and that was trying to implement it. And I did that for a while and found it wasn't quite the right fit for me. The organization, the way when they were angry with farmers insurance, they arranged to have a big load of horse manure dumped on the front steps of farmers' corporate offices as a message. That's just not my style of advocacy. And I thought, I'm gonna say goodbye here. I did a stint as a litigator representing people who had to sue their insurance companies for not paying a claim. I had a couple whose 2-year-old fell in their pool and was brain damaged, and they wanted their insurer to cover a shift of home nursing. I had clients whose home had burned down and their insurer wouldn't pay because they said that they thought that they had committed arson, and they hired me, and I hired a cause and origin expert who went and found that the material that the insurer had thought was an accelerant, that they thought was proof that they had burned their own house down, was actually a melted skylight. So I did that for a while. And while I was working as a litigator, I met a whistleblower. A whistleblower came to our firm and had quit a major insurer, saying that they were underpaying and lowballing claims, and she wanted us to help her. And I thought she was really good. It was a very good yin yang with me because there I am, a progressive from New York, and she was a Republican from Oklahoma who had been working in the insurance industry, whereas I was always kind of in the public policy realm. And together we decided we would form a nonprofit for policyholders. And right after we had picked a name, we had this, what at that time, a record-breaking destructive urban wildfire, the Oakland Berkeley firestorm, which took out homes of a lot of professors and lawyers and very smart people. And there were a lot of issues. People didn't have the right insurance. People were frustrated with how slow the process was going. And we started offering programming to help with troubleshooting, with problem solving. So the program we built at that time, the Roadmap to Recovery, is the same program that we now have been bringing to wildfire impacted communities for 35 years. It's the program that we are running in LA right now. And it's given rise to our two other programs. We have a Roadmap to Preparedness program, and then we have an Advocacy and Action. So United Policyholders is a 501c3. We're a nonprofit, and we're funded by grants and donations. And we don't accept funding from insurance companies, but we do our best to work with insurance companies to problem solve. And we work very closely with departments of insurance, primarily in California, but we're national. So I have relationships with insurance commissioners all across the country, because everywhere you go, there are insurance problems that need solutions. And yeah.
Let me cut through and jump to something specific. I have a distinct feeling that my insurance company is trying to get out of California.
Uh-huh.
They're trying to do everything they can to signal that they don't want to talk to me, don't want to take my calls. And of course, they're overwhelmed because of all the claims, right? Because we're in West LA, not far from where the
Right.
Pacific Palisades fire was. But if the insurance companies are punished for all the bad things that have happened here with the fire, does that just result in them exiting the market? And then what do we end up with? The only option is sort of like a government sponsored option?
Well, that is a fear, right? So the marketplace in California has been troubled. The property insurance, home insurance, and business and condos has been in not good shape starting in 2016. So we've been dealing with this, and the insurers had been saying, well, we don't like the regulatory environment. We're not allowed to charge what we really need to charge. It takes too long for us to get our rates approved. So, and for every action, there is a reaction, right? And unfortunately, there's not an easy solution here, right? The insurers say Prop 103, this ballot measure that I talked about, that was part of my early career, putting it into place, it did establish controls over what insurers can charge, limited them in some ways. They've never liked it. So that was originally, when we first started to look for solutions, to when insurers started to, as you say, signal that they didn't want your business, that they were not happy here in California. And we started to think, well, what could we do to fix those? Because we need them. And, California's FAIR plan, which is our fallback insurer of last resort, it's as close as we have to a public program. I mean, we have the California Earthquake Authority, but for regular home insurance, we just have the private market or the FAIR plan. The problem is the FAIR plan is completely supported and funded by private insurers, a certain kind of insurer, an admitted licensed insurer. And so when we were looking at, okay, what can we do here to make insurers, to restore their enthusiasm about doing business in California, we looked at as much of the low-hanging fruit with what reforms could we do that would continue to protect consumers, but would also address insurers' concerns. I've had there's some tension with a group called Consumer Watchdog, because they have been opposing all the solutions that the insurance commissioner has been bringing through his sustainable insurance strategy. They've been opposing the regulatory reforms and saying, call their bluff. Insurers are not going to leave the state. They're never going to leave the state. My problem is we work nationally, and I just don't think that's true, right? Because we work in Florida, and most of the major name brand insurers are not there, right? A lot of the insurers that are there are small, regional, often not adequately capitalized type
Right.
entities.
It's
And
easy
so
to
I
sell
don't,
insurance. It's easy to sell insurance if you just
right,
shut down when
when there's
there's
claims.
too many claims, you're
Right.
just
You collect,
done.
yeah. So that's a long answer to your question, but my point is like this debate over, well, if we continue to make insurers drink medicine they don't like, or like, or that's maybe not the best analogy, but if we continue to make them unhappy, that and at some point they're going to say, well, we'll do business in another state.
So there, Amy, there's no question that a lot of people that lost their homes in the fire have had a double sort of another punch in the stomach when they call the insurance company, and the insurance company does not make it easy for them to collect what they're entitled to or what they believe they're entitled to. And in a way, it's their job to try to make it difficult enough that people sort of give up asking for every last piece of the claim they could. I know from my own experience, my car was broken into recently in downtown LA, first time since I moved to LA in the 1990s. And I don't even think it's worth filing a claim for some of the stuff because I'm just dreading dealing with the insurance company and the paperwork and the hassle to try to do that. So, and it's a very imbalanced relationship in a way, right? Because one person's an individual and the other person is a large company that has legions of lawyers. Of course, the individual is very motivated to get paid, and the company is also motivated to not pay extra.
Right.
But those are employees ultimately that work for the company that don't care as much as the person maybe who's lost their home. But what do you think is let's focus on the fires. What is it that you're providing in the LA fires as a resource? How are you getting involved in this?
We are hosting educational webinars, workshops. We're answering people's questions. And at the core, we empower the insured with information so that people can make good decisions, be their own best advocates, and get what they paid for. And that's our focus, is on shedding light onto confusing, unfamiliar processes and helping the the consumer understand that, well, you're not on a level playing field when you're dealing with an insurance company, and here are sample letters you can use, here is information you can use, here's information about the laws and your rights. Use these to get a fair shake. That's what we're
That's
doing.
incredible. That's incredibly valuable. And I'm guessing that a lot of people are comparing notes with their neighbors. How's it going? What did you do? How did you get them to agree to this? But you're providing another resource of best practices and helping them understand what they're up against and how it's likely to go down. And I know it can take an extremely long time too to get to a settlement with the insurance company. What are you seeing with the LA fires? You've been involved in insurance resources relating to a lot of fires. What are you seeing in the case of the LA fires in particular that stands out in your mind that's maybe different or unique to these fires?
Well, in most wildfire, pretty much every wildfire we've worked, the statistic on how many people have found themselves underinsured, meaning their dwelling, they don't have enough dollars in coverage to put it back the way it was. So, but in LA, while our normal stat is about 60% of people are underinsured, in LA, it's looking much more like 80 or even higher percent of the people are underinsured for lots of reasons, but that's one. Number two, we're seeing the disputes over valuations, meaning how much is it going to cost to put Humpty Dumpty back together? We're seeing lots of those disputes because prices have risen so much for materials, right? Between tariffs and between losing, workers to the immigration situation, costs are really high. So we're seeing higher levels of underinsurance, more valuation disputes where the insurer is saying, hey, it should cost X, and the homeowner said, well, but I'm being told it's going to cost Y. And then we have the smoke damage disputes, which are at a level that we've never seen. I mean, we our organization, we've seen fights between homeowners and their insurers over the extent of smoke remediation that has to be done, but never on the scale of what we're seeing in LA. And there's good reasons why when you know what actually happened, last January when these fires went down.
So the smoke damage really is much more extensive than many other fires. Or is it
Correct.
also that the people in the Palisades that lost their homes are not willing to move into a house that has remnants of the smoke, and they're more advocating more powerfully for themselves to
That's
have that paid for.
correct. There's three reasons. One is things burned in these fires that we haven't seen before, right? Hundreds, maybe thousands of Teslas with batteries, right? So that's why we're seeing weird metals, right? That's one. The extent of the contamination. There is the high property values, the fact that, when people are living in temporary residences and with rent gouging, they're paying a lot, right? For those temporary residents. And then the third thing is what you said. The homeowners are very connected. The internet is connecting everybody. They're talking to the people from the Marshall Fire in Colorado. Awareness has grown tremendously about the health risks, and people are justifiably not comfortable with their insurance company's determination that it's safe for them to move back in.
So switching gears again, insurance rates are going up, will continue going up. There's just no two ways around it. How should that cost be borne by our society? Do you have a point of view about that? Is it people that live in hillier areas that are more likely to burn that should share that cost, or should everybody share the cost equally? In some ways, if somebody lives in the flat part of LA, that's much less likely to be the next giant fire. Should they have to subsidize the people that live in the hillier areas, which sometimes are more expensive and more high value areas? Not always, but sometimes.
That's a question that people ask all over the country. People in who live inland, why should I subsidize people who are living too close to the water? Insurance, it works when diverse risks are pooled. We all have risks, right? You live in the city, you could get broken into, or you could get in an accident. You live in the country, there could be a fire, right? So, or a flood. So I think the way the system is now, there's a certain amount of sharing and spreading of the risk, but people in higher wildfire risk areas, they are paying more. They have brush surcharges on them. They are paying more in general. So that's the way it is. Big picture, we definitely are at United Policyholders, and I are advocating for the creation of a federal reinsurance facility, some sort of disaster resource, so that there is in addition to the private market, that there is some sort of government backstop that I think we need now to balance, because risk has definitely increased with climate change. There's just it's not just climate change. It's the technology that has developed, that insurers are accessing, has magnified risks that they used to take happily, they don't want anymore, because the technology has made those risks look unprofitable to them.
Right. And one of our recent guests was talking about landscaping approaches that reduce the risk of fire, specifically keeping trees away from the side of the house at some
Yes.
distance away. Are insurance companies going to require homeowners in LA to re-landscape and to take out those bushes and trees next to the house in order to get insurance? And that would be a rational thing to do to reduce the risk of another calamity like this. But also, I'm sure it would be very unpopular with people that, are in love with their yard and trees and have planted a lot of things that they don't want to rip out and just replace with xeriscaping.
Right. That exact conflict is playing out right now with the California State Forestry Board, which was about to issue a statewide rule that's called Zone Zero, which is, scientists have said the first 5 feet around the home should be clear of brush, right? That's gives firefighters a chance to save the home, lots of other things. But a group of homeowners from Brentwood came and, they've been lobbying the governor. They went and they put up a big stink because, yes, people love their trees. I love trees. They love their landscaping, and they don't want to be told what to do on their own properties. So there's a tension there. And in answer to your question, insurance companies are definitely not just starting, they have non-renewed, dropped a lot of people because of the brush conditions around their homes. And we're on a journey to try to help homeowners make improvements that will make their home more insurable. And it's a tough one. I mean, people have to, it's expensive to make these changes, and it's unpleasant, right? I don't want to uglify my house.
Right. These are difficult problems. There's no question about it. But I would think that the insurance companies are within their rights to come and inspect the house and say, look, if you want to continue with us, you're going to have to make these changes to your landscaping. And that would be beneficial in terms of reducing fire risk in a way. And the homeowner might be disappointed with that, but I haven't seen that start to happen. I'm not aware that any insurance company has ever come to my house to see my house. Maybe they can do it with Google Maps and that's good enough for them now, but
well, they're using drone surveillance.
Or using
it's
aerial,
happening. Believe me,
aerial
Jan,
photos.
it's happening.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
It's happening.
So what other observations do you have that relate to the people that were affected by these fires, people that are building new homes, either for themselves to live in or to sell to other homeowners in the future? Do you have any messages for them or anything for them to keep in mind based on your experience?
Yeah, incorporate the Safer from Wildfires or Wildfire Prepared Home Standard. They're basically the same in your rebuild. So when you rebuild a house that meets these standards. That means, screening your vents so ambers can't get in. It means having this clear space around the home. It means using double pane windows, incorporating those techniques that we know that experts have said make it less likely that the home will burn, and then you'll have an easier time getting insurance going forward, and it'll be less likely that your home will burn again. I mean, there are people who lost their home in the Camp Fire in Butte County, Paradise, and then rebuilt and then lost it again in another wildfire. So the message is rebuild a resilient home.
Amy, I think it's really so cool that you found your purpose early and you went to law school specifically to pursue that, and now you've created a nonprofit that you clearly have a mission that you're pursuing, and it's really been a pleasure talking to you, and I really appreciate what you're doing, and I think that our viewers will as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Rebuilding LA After the Fires. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with a friend or neighbor who might benefit. Be sure to check the show notes for links and resources I mentioned today. And join me next time for more important insights into LA's rebuilding efforts.